And I don't know how much you guys are going to be able to hear. My first grader is in the background yelling in the other room. So I apologize if you start hearing his sweet little voice coming through the computer. But we're here with the September 16th All Access Zoom crop. We're going to be, the first project we're putting together is the full moon project recipe. So this, I thought this was a fun project recipe. I really liked that. To me, it's going to be easily adaptable for any theme. You basically just, they use the new Ghost Chain Border Maker cartridge, and then the, various papers that go with that theme. For me, it was I just picked out some papers from Party Time. I'm going to be using the Party Hats Border Maker cartridge. You could probably, on this one, if you're doing something like the birthday, or if you're doing another theme, you could grab Border Maker or the border punches. I could have grabbed the birthday cake, the gifts, and kind of just work those in there if I wanted to, but I'm pretty certain I'm just going to stick with Party Hats on this particular example. So that's kind of what I'm going with there. So the project recipe itself, in terms of the papers, when you look at the final example, they have a background, this bottom background. They use the orange stripe. I will be using the banner paper. The way we will cut the paper is we're going to chop off the top 4.5 inches or so, and we're going to use the back side of that as mats. And so it works great. This purple is going to work just fine to make some mats. Otherwise, you could, if you didn't like how it was going to look, you could just, cut it off, make the project recipe, just set it aside for another project. But in this particular case, it's going to work just fine. And then they have some white at the top. And so I am going to be using some white cardstock. I'm sticking with that. I have a piece of white cardstock that I'll use for the top. And then the next thing they have us doing here is they have us this black paper here, this black piece, they just have us using black cardstock. I am going to be using a piece of tonal yellow paper from the Party Time collection. And then they have another piece of paper that they use to make the orange row of ghosts, and also makes some mats. So what I'm going to use is I have some of the Firecracker shimmer paper. I thought the shimmer paper might be fun. So that's what I've got going on here. So that's how I made my paper choice. I just kind of laid it out, thought those colors would look good. It's going to use some of that purple in there as well. And that's pretty neutral in terms of, I'm not sure if it's going to be for which child it will be for, but it'll be bright and colorful. So to get started with this, I am this time going to cut the mats. And the reason is looking at the sizes that they have going on here, I like the arrangement. And I think these are sizes that I can work with. There's a combination of vertical, there's a combination of horizontal. We've got, 7 total images between the 2 pages. I think that's going to work great. So we're going to cut the project recipe according to the instructions instead of doing any kind of crazy changes. So the first paper we're going to go ahead and use is going to be paper number 1. So for me, I wrote this already down on here, is going to be, I was going to use Scarlet and I changed it. I'm going to use the Firecracker Shimmer. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to punch a border, and then I'm going to cut some of these matte pieces. So I'll set those papers aside, and I'm going to grab my Border Maker system, got Party Hats. And we'll punch. Go ahead and punch just one row of that. And I'll set that to the side. Now grab my trimmer, and we just need to use, we're just using the straight blade. We don't need to use any decorative blades on this. You can always, of course, you know, if you want to with your mats, you can always use a decorative blade. The one thing you would want to do is maybe just pay attention to your project recipe here. In this particular case, like all this sheet, all I'm doing is cutting mats. So I could use a blade and just cut all my mats with this. On this other, the banner piece, the banner papers where we cut these other mats, and I would probably need to cut those after I make the initial cut to make the mats. I could then take and just do a quick all the way around with my decorative blade if I wanted to do that. So that's something to keep in mind. Even though, you know, a project recipe shows you, or any kind of sketch shows you with a solid, you know, just a straight mat cut, you know, grab a decorative blade on your trimmer and just give that a whirl and see what you think. So here we're going to go 4.5 inches wide is our first cut. So I'm going to come over here at 4.5. And then we're going to make 3 pieces that are 3.25 inch wide. And these would be for 3x4 photos. And 3x4 is a great size. You're able to get 2 of them on a single 4x6. That's if you print at home, or even if you send off to a photo lab, there's all of those various like things like Project Life app on your phone that you could make those little collages. There would be the 2 3x4s. They just face each other on a 4x6 or next to each other. Then the last mat I need here is a 4.25 by 4.25 square. So I'll go ahead and cut this at 4.25 wide, and I'll make that square. This would be for a 4x4 photo. So like I said, these are all very standard size photos, definitely easy enough to work with. My leftover pieces here, they're just scrap, so I'll set those aside. I could, you know, this is a birthday theme, so I could totally just grab the double balloon punch and make some, punch some red balloons if I wanted to. The next piece we're going to do is going to be with the white cardstock. That's piece number 2. And we'll go ahead and punch our borders with that. So we need 2 borders punched from the white cardstock. I'll grab my party hats. We'll punch out 2 of these. One more of these. And there I have, so now I've got all 3 of my party hat borders done. So I've got the red and the white. And the nice part about this particular project recipe is, even though, you know, they have us kind of dialed in with a little bit more of a limited selection on the colors, like, you know, it just had us use 2 different colors for the borders. You could grab your scratch extra paper and just punch a thing on there. So can everybody see my tabletop okay? Just making sure. Okay, so I see Laura, I see you nodding your head. I just had a message from about trying to share my screen, but I'm not sharing anything on there on my computer screen. So my desktop should be what you're seeing. If you're on a mobile device and you can't see it, you may need to do a swipe one way or the other to get to the featured screen. So maybe that's a little bit what the problem is there. So still working with my white cardstock, I now need to cut those bigger strips that go across the top of the layout, and those are 4.5 inches wide. So I'll come over here to 4.5. And I'll do 2 of those. And then you just have a strip that's left over. Actually, I apologize, guys. Those are only 4.25. So I actually need to take off 1/4 of an inch. I need to read closer. 4.25 inches. And we're going to do a paper weld. And so it needs to be, I guess, as close to as possible, because we will be cutting the bottom portion of the paper at 7.75 inch. And 4.25 plus 7.75 will give us that full 12 inches. All right, so there we go. I have my white pieces cut and ready to go. The next item on our list is going to be, let's see here. 1, 2, 3. They want us, yeah, they have us cutting everything. We're going to go ahead and cut sheet number 3, which is listed as a black cardstock. I'm using the yellow paper here, and they have us using a welding piece here. And if I was just using cardstock, I would probably be just fine doing that. I'm looking around to see if I have any quick extra paper. Oh, I'll just cut it from this. I would normally use a piece of designer paper for a welding piece, but I didn't grab an extra piece of paper there. So you cut 2 1-inch segments for your welding piece. You need 2 welding pieces. Each of them are going to be 1 inch wide. And then what you're going to do is rotate this big piece of paper, and we're going to trim off 1 inch. So now I should have a piece of paper, and this extra piece we just trimmed off is scrap. I should have a piece now that is 9, it's 10 inches wide. Yep, by 11. Yep, I cut everything right, just making sure. Yep, 10 by 11. And right now I'm just going to leave this as is for right now. We're going to leave this as is, just this piece of paper, just set it aside. We'll come back to it in a minute. We're going to finish cutting the other pieces. So now I'm cutting my background, my bigger pieces of background, my banner pieces. And my banners have a direction to them, right? They're upside down right now. I'll flip them around. So this is the bottom of my banner. So when I cut, I need to cut parallel with my banners. And I'm going to go ahead and cut off 4.25 inches from the top. So 4.25 inches. And this section here is going to turn into a mat that is 4.25, and I'll make a cut at 5.75. And now I have 2 mats. And I'll repeat both of those cuts with my second piece of paper. So I'll make my first cut, making sure my banners are going the right direction. They come over here towards the right, and I'm cutting off the top edge here at 4.25. And then I will rotate this and make that another cut again at 5.75 inch. And that will give me 2 mats. So I have a set of my 4 purple mats. I've got some firecracker shimmer mats. Those are all my photo mats. So I'm going to put all my photo mats together. Now, the next thing I want us to do is let's go ahead and put my white pieces over here with my the bottoms of the paper, and I'm going to grab my borders that I punched. So I've got my 3 borders that I've punched here. And I'm coming back to this section of, this was in the project recipe itself. It's the yellow, it's the black piece. For mine, it's yellow. And I need to make sure that I'm putting these things on in the right direction. So when I'm looking at my cut guide, across the top is, let's see if I can write this on here so you guys can see it. This width right here is 10 inches. My length is 11 inches. I mean, it's almost a square. And that's why I'm pointing it out, because I want you to make sure when you do this, you don't cut things wrong. You don't put your borders on wrong. So when I look at this, I've got 10 inches across the top and I'm 11 inches here. So my borders are going to come along here. We're going to put the borders on first and then we will cut. So I'm going to just kind of put them on how I think I want them. I'm going to grab my trimming mat because I want to use that mat to make sure I get them on here evenly spaced and level across. If they give any recommendations? No, they really don't give any recommendations on spacing. So you just want to make sure, maybe start at the bottom and put your first one across the bottom. So I'm going to come up, I'm coming up just 1/8 of an inch. And I can see that my party hats have a natural spacing. So I'm just going to go ahead. Your border, it should fit on there evenly because the border maker, these are, the segments are all 2 inches. So since we have a 10-inch width, you should have a nice, you know, start and stop point. Like I could start this one right at this. And it's the same thing. I don't have to, you know, center it per se. If you want your party hats to be off a little bit, so maybe they're not exactly lined up, you could, you know, shift one to be, the next row to be off center a little bit. So I'll put that one about 1/8 of an inch above the bottom one. And then I have just one last one to put on. All right, so I got those on there. And then I'll be able to just grab a pair. I'm just going to use a quick pair of scissors. Maybe if you were better at this than, smarter about it than I was, you did it so it just overhangs one side. You could use your trimmer, do a quick snip. And there we've got our borders placed on there. Now what we can do is go back to our trimmer and we can cut. And it says, I wrote over it in the blue line, I'm pretty certain it says 2 1/4 inches is my narrow piece. So that's what I'm going to trim off. Yeah, I'm going to trim off 2 1/4 inch. And the reason we put these borders on first before we, I'm going to change mine a little bit, guys. I'm going to tell you why. If I am to cut this, I am going to cut right down the middle of a party hat. And I really don't want to. I really would prefer to cut, if I move this over, even just a little bit, I'm hitting a better spot in my party hats. And that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to make a little bit of an adjustment. I'm going to put down I can put down my blade, you know, my, arm here, and I can pull, you know, the guide out, and I can come right along here, and I can see, oh, I am hitting the party hat a lot better. Instead of having kind of a weird edge without, you know, making a party hat look kind of funky, I'm going to have a much better separation between them. So that worked a lot better. So now what I've got is my two pieces here like this. So this will be my left page and then my right page. The next thing, what we can do is go ahead, and if you want, you can use your corner rounder and come in and just do your outside corners. So 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so that's all done. So now the next thing I need to do is I need to go ahead and piece my background pieces together. Remember, we have a top, which is that white section, and then we have a bottom, which is our banner. So here's the banner. I have a white piece, it's going to come across in here. And then I need to have a strip that I can use to weld these pieces together. So my strips are, because I cut decorative paper to do it, I've got these, and I'm going to use the lighter side, the candles. And I will use regular adhesive for this. And I just run as close to down the center as I can. And there's various ways you can do the paper welding. I could have just flipped these papers over and used tape chips and done it as well. If you're building on an album page, if you scrap chronologically, you could just, you know, put it together on top of the album page. I use top loading, so they're going to go inside a top loading page, or top loading album page, or yeah, top loading sleeves. One more that we'll put together here. All right, so now I have my two pages together. So there's my, here, let's get this on here so you can see it. There we go. And then it's just a matter of kind of assembling the pieces. So this comes on as such. This goes clear over here to the opposite side. And they do have it in the project recipe. They're going to have you move it up just a little bit more. So your margin here at the top is a little bit less, or more, is more less than here at the bottom. So you have a little bit of more room at the bottom. It's a little bit more of that decorative, the patterns show through. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. And then we have mats that we can put into place. So the larger, when we cut these pieces off, remember we cut one that was a little bit bigger than the other. The bigger ones are meant for 4x6s, and they would come over onto this edge here. And then we have two horizontal photos that would come here. And then our square mat would fit in about yay so. They do show using one of these as a journal box. For Party Time had those decorative mats that are part of the, it has this page. So I would maybe come in here and grab one of these and replace or inset it in here. I would also, one of the things that I would do is I'm putting this together, I can see they went very monochromatic with their mats. So they have, you know, a light orange versus a darker orange as the mat. Since I have very contrasting colors, I might shift this around. I might come over here and put the red like as such, and then put the purple here. That's just gonna balance it a little bit more. So that just kind of depends on how you want to put things together. And then you'd have the mats go in like this. So that in general is going to be the full moon project recipe. You can of course start embellishing once you get your photos and everything on here. You can start adding details. There's a lot of stuff in Party Time to work with that I could add to this. And there's the same thing for full moon, has some fun stickers that you can use. Lots of areas that you could come in with here. Like I said, you've got this space in here you can just think of as decorative. If you don't want to do the border stripes or the, you know, using 3 border maker cartridges, basically just make yourself a border that goes, you know, you're going to put it all the way across that piece of paper and then cut it so that you have, you know, your border here and then continues on to this side. So don't, you know, you can just play around with that section. So are there any questions on the Party Time, or excuse me, the Full Moon Fun project recipe? I'm not sure how many of you are working along and putting this together. Let's see here. So, all right, I don't see, hold on here, a quick second. All right, so if there's no questions on this particular one, it's pretty straightforward. I'm going to go ahead and pick up my stuff. I'll come back and see about putting in some additional details, and then I'll take a picture and post it into the group. The next one we're going to do is going to be the project that I uploaded for this week in All Access, which is those borders that, starting with some 6-inch squares, make some cuts, score some things, fold, and then embellish. So I still show this as a lot of different pieces because when I put together my instructions for this, I wanted to be able to show you that it's pretty versatile. I didn't want to do one specific way and then I don't want to say box into a type of stuff, but rather just give you that idea that there's just things you can do with it. It's just a base border to start with. And you can, work with whatever goes for your theme. The biggest thing to note with this is the way it's cut, you will always end up with the 4 border pieces. So you could put them all on one page. And of course, I can't find the other. Well, here's one of them. You can, you can have it be on one page. I started cleaning and that was my downfall. Then I put things where I can't find them. So you can see here, you've got just one page. It works. Go either direction. This concept, this angled, I've done this before. This is just a little bit of a different way to get to this angle. But it's definitely one of those just things you could do. You can bring this over into a 2-page layout. Imagine that you have another background piece here. So I am going to walk you through ways to do it. I've got the, this is a circle punch. Could come on the outside like this. You can tuck it under in the middle as such. You could tuck in the different punches. You can run a border down the side. You could tuck a border underneath each section here. Lots of ways that you can use this. And I did cheat. I used the retired maple leaf punch. Lots of maple leaves up here in Washington State. So you can just kind of imagine tucking some borders in there. Gets to be super pretty, super cute. Lots of just ways to do that. So we'll go ahead and get started to show you how to do this, make this border. And as I mentioned earlier, I am using Spring Medley. And the great thing about this is you don't need to start with a full sheet of paper. So if you've already punched some borders, maybe you've already made a project and used a small section, you just need 6 inches of it. It needs to be a 6 by 12 because you'll need those 2 6 by 6 squares. So I'm going to go ahead and trim my paper down. Nothing on this paper is directional, so I don't need to worry about that. If you have a directional paper, when you cut the squares, it's not going to matter, but it will matter a little bit when you when you do your angles, and I'll talk about that in a second. So I'm going to cut this to 6 by 6. So 2 6 by 6 squares. Now, here's the thing. If you have a direction to your pattern, I want you to flip it over so you can see the pattern side that has the direction to it. So I'm just going to say, I'm going to leave mine pattern up. The other side is more tonal, so I'll leave it so I'm pattern up. And imagine it, if you had a pattern that you needed to have the directional, you want to go ahead and have it to be, the top edge of your pattern is, towards the top. You will need a pencil for this. And the first thing we're going to do is, I talk about in the directions, I refer to piece A and piece B. And piece A will be our top piece here, this top square. And let me, real quick, make so we can keep an eye on this and we don't forget. This is piece A and piece B. And the reason I want to make sure that we keep track of those is because we're going to cut one angle one direction, and then we cut the other one the opposite direction. And if you don't get that going one way and the other going the other direction, you're going to run into problems. So that's the big thing. We have piece A right here is got the top edge of piece A. I'm going to set B aside for a moment. And I'm going to bring A down into the lower corner here just because that's how I work. And I'm going to come in 1 inch from the top right and 1 inch from the bottom left. So I'm going to come in 1 inch, use my trimming mat as my guide. 1 inch is right here. Mark it with a pencil. Do the same at the opposite corner on the bottom. So I've got 1 inch here and 1 inch there. Now I'm going to just set piece A aside. I've got it marked. And piece B, I'm going to reverse those measurements. So I'm going to be coming 1 inch from the upper left and 1 inch from the lower right. And if you need to see it visually on the directions, step 11 kind of shows you how those cuts on those pieces work. So I've got them marked, and now I'm going to grab my trimmer and I'm going to start with piece A. I'm using a straight blade as I mentioned in the directions, you could use a decorative blade because this is the piece that we're going to fold back. This edge that we're cutting right now is the edge when we fold that will lie against our background. So here's my top right, my lower left. I'm going to line those up on my cutting line and go ahead and make that cut. So I've got my two pieces. Then I'll do this. I'm going to grab piece B and find my measurements or my line. So upper left, lower right. So there we go. I've got my two sections cut. And so this is B, this is A. And I'm going to continue showing you with A since that's how my instructions are set up. So we're piece A. I'm going to bring it back down here to the bottom. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and once again, I'm going to come in 1 inch. So I've got my narrow section here at the bottom and across my wide section at the top, I'm going to come in 1 inch and mark with my pencil. And I will do the same thing with my other piece. I'm going to just flip it around so that I'm just repeating that same measurement. I'm at the widest piece here. I come in 1 inch from the angle on that piece. And while I've got things here, I'm going to go ahead and mark again on these other pieces too. 1 inch in from my angle on the wide edge. So I've got my wide edge here at the top. This is my angle. So I come in 1 inch from that edge, that angled edge. So the next step is we're going to use our scoring blade on our trimmer. So switch that out. And then I've got my 1 inch piece mark here. I'm going to go ahead and score from my mark all the way down to this corner. I do find that when I'm using this, and I'm scoring, I cheat in ever so slightly. So my corner here is ever so slightly past my trimming mark. That's just going to give me a nice angle all the way down here. So there's my score, and then I'm going to just quickly fold it for you so you can see that I've got that nice pretty blue coming across. My intention is to leave my pattern side up and go ahead and use the tonal side here with the blue will show. And so then I'm just going to go ahead and do all those scores. Just 2 more to do. This is my last score. And then I'll switch back over. Well, I'll score and then I'll fold. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab, put my straight blade back in. So get these all scored or folded. One more. And the reason I'm having you fold them is because the next step we're going to do, we need to see exactly where that line is, where that fold mark is. And so sometimes it's just a little easier once you've already got that fold in place to see where that line is. You do have a marking there, so that should make it fairly easy. But the fold just reminds you for sure where it is. Now, the next thing we need to do is you notice when we fold this that we have this overhangs the top. So if using a directional pattern with words, should the squares be sideways? You'd want the squares need to be top. So imagine if you have words, let's look at this really quick. This, here we go. Here's my original square. This is piece A. You can see here that words should come across the top here, just like this. Your words would be they would just go right across this way, because what's going to happen, the reason that works is when we do this, this is piece A. Here is the upper left of piece A. This piece right here is going to move down to the lower right when we make our border. So our words will still be horizontal. They'll still be come across here just fine. And the same thing, this was piece B. When we do this, we move this, these are going to go opposite each other. So we want to make sure when we cut that the top of our pattern is going to be the top edge in the diagram. So hopefully that makes sense. So we've got these pieces, we've got them folded, and we notice that we have an overhang here. So now that that does make sense for a side border. So you do need to know if you want this to go the other direction, you need to know ahead of time how you want to use the borders. So for sure, if you wanted to use them as a top and bottom border, you're going to have to keep that in mind. So directional paper, especially when there's a definitive top and bottom, you kind of need to know ahead of time before you cut if you're going to use this as a top and bottom border, or if you're going to use it as a side to side border. If it's a top and if it's a side to side, you want to cut, you want to keep that in mind and just make sure your top, I guess, if you're wanting to do it the other direction, you would have to rotate your paper. So yeah, there is that little bit of a caveat there to keep in mind when you're doing that. So the step here, when we have this overlap, is we're going to measure up from this tip on that folded edge over here. And we're going to measure up 1.5 inches and then make another diagonal cut here. So we're going to basically cut off a triangle. And that's going to give us a nice tapered edge right there that'll look really nice. So I'm going to grab all of these, and on my folded flap, I'm measuring up 1.5 inches. And it's 1.5 inches from, my folded flap, bring it down. And this is at the widest edge. I think of this as the narrow, this is the wide. It's 1.5 inches on that end of the folded flap. And then I will be able to make all those cuts. And that 1.5 inch measurement, I need to switch over to my cutting blade again. That 1.5 inch measurement is, you can mess around a little bit with it if you think it's too steep of a cut. But you can see there, now I've got a nice tapered edge that doesn't stick over. One last one here. Now I'm going to go ahead and adhere all of my folds down. It just helps me visualize it a little bit better. If you want a little bit more dimension, you might not want to fold them. One last one to all right. So they're all folded. You can kind of envision here again. Let's see. This was piece A. This was piece B. And now I'm ready to go ahead and put on a background. And I'm only going to build 1/2 the page just because probably whatever I would do on one side, I would mirror on the other. So I just grabbed a piece of the tonal paper out of Spring Medley. I needed something that would allow this edging to still stand out. I got a pretty busy thing going on here. So this made a nice tonal background. There is space in here to go ahead and do a punch or a border of some sort if you wanted to put some detail in there. And I could easily come in with a set of the stickers. Now they have, you know, these lovely birds in here. So in this particular case, because I didn't work with non-directional, I worked with non-directional paper to begin with, I can rotate this really easy. And I could come in here, I'm not going to put this down permanently, but I could come in here across the bottom with the borders. They have other border stickers, strips on this particular set that you could come across the, that would be horizontal, or excuse me, vertical. And you could come in there. I could use, I think it was Spring Leaf Border Maker cartridge, not to be confused with Spring Leaf, was a really pretty one that would work in there too. So it really just depends on what you put together, how, you know, the theme you went with. I have a very floral, botanical set of papers here. If you use, you know, something else, you grab whatever border matches your theme, but you've got a little bit of space in here. You could come in and do across the bottom. So let me real quick, I forgot to grab, let's see, do I have it? I was going to grab some navy and punch a border real quick. Let me look at my scrap. Here's a piece I can punch navy out of that, a Spring Medley border. I want to show kind of what it would look like if you were to tuck a border under there a little bit. It would look really cute. But you're going to have to, you would have to punch. Okay. So imagine we got the Spring Medley or the spring border here. This would come across the top here. And you've got, you know, it's pretty bold, maybe a little too bold for this particular case. It's a pretty wide border. I might go a little bit more delicate. But the one thing that is kind of neat with this one, Spring Medley looked, or the Spring Leaf Punch looked really nice just as an edge. So you could come in for this. So in the case for this particular border, and I'm really sorry, it's retired, you could just come across even with a pair of scissors and cut it in half. I don't care so much about the dots. I just want that outer edge. And I don't need the whole thing. I just need half for each section, for the top and the bottom. And that edge, that diagonal is more than 6 inches. So I can't just cut 1 in half. I don't have enough. But if I came in here and put that as such, put this as such, you can see that it's got just that nice additional contrast detail going. So, and then you just put something here to kind of cover up that seam a little bit. Since my pattern was a little bit more bold, I can definitely see where that border is. If you use something a little more tonal, not quite as big of a pattern, that seam may hide itself naturally in whatever paper or things that you use, but just some additional detail using some of the stickers or other punched embellishments would be great there. So that's really the gist of this particular border. It's really about getting that base pieces made and then working to your heart's content on what works for your layout. I could definitely see if you came in, imagine we rotate this whole thing, and then you could come in with a jumbo circle and just make a nice big circle here, or a decorative, element. Just imagine this is kind of like a, it's all nestled into there. So lots of ways to have fun with this one. Are there any questions about this border, this project? So the biggest thing, what I would say is, yes, you would definitely want to pay attention. If you're using a directional paper, you do need to know ahead of time whether you want it to be a bottom or top border versus a side to side border. So if you're just the first time you're playing with it, or if you're not sure, I would definitely not go with a directional pattern if you're not sure whether you want to do a top and bottom versus a side to side border. I have a non-directional paper, so I've got flexibility. So I do agree, guys. Spring Medley is super, super pretty. It's probably one of my, I don't use it a whole lot because it's a lot more botanical than my standard photo needs would be. The tonal papers were great. I love those. And I do like a lot of the patterns. They're super pretty. They're just, I need to put my garden photos in there. I need to take more garden photos. So that is the two projects for today's Zoom crop. I do want to take a few minutes. I got I received my order from Creative Memories. So I have the new Full Moon Fun papers and stickers. And I know I'm always a little bit, like, hey, let's put the project recipe together and then never use the papers, even though I already have them. And part of it, and I'll tell you the reason I do that, is I want you guys to look at these project recipes and definitely start thinking outside of the theme that they give you. Right here, you guys can visualize what it looks like with full moon, but now we see what it looks like with party time. Now we see what it looks, I hope you guys share what you guys create it with, because then you're going to see the options it has. And these project recipes can kind of just go into your binder or whatever you use, if you do keep these to organize them, as just looking beyond the examples to show that these things are really versatile in fun ways. So let me show you the Full Moon papers. I like them in person a lot better than I did online. It's not that I didn't like them online. I just wasn't, I don't know. I really liked Wicked Cute. Was that the name of it? It was really, really cute. I like the purples and the yellows and the teals and everything. This one has a little bit more of a limited color palette with the orange, the greens and the oranges and the blacks. I am fond of purple, and so I'm really excited when Halloween collections use purple. And it's not to say that I couldn't work purple into this, but it maybe, we'll see what happens. But it's a really pretty paper pack. I like that it has that decorative mats that come with it. They do have a little cute pumpkin border on here. So the one side we have is going to be all of our tonal prints. It has a nice orange tonal print. This green is lovely. I'm not sure if these are supposed to be pumpkin seeds on there or what they're supposed to be, but I'm going to tell you that to me, this would just be a general orange. Like I do not immediately associate this with Halloween. So if you need a tonal orange, good to go right there. Greens, a nice tonal green. A stripe, there's no, it's just a dark and light tonal green stripe. They have, okay, I think it's supposed to be, I was messing with the papers already. This side is a lighter orange, just some chevrons. Sorry guys, I was messing. I am featured Project Friday tomorrow on the Creative Life scrapbooking. And I probably should have had my project done, but I don't. So I'm going to be working on that afterwards. I'm doing something with Full Moon Fun. I have it pretty much in my head what I'm going to do. Then we have the tonal black. It has a moon and stars in it. So it's really kind of neat. If you guys can see that, kind of fun. Has a little bit more of that Halloween spooky thing going on. And then they have a orange, tonal orange with just some stars. So then we flip it over and take a look at our patterns, more so the patterns. We have this nice bold stripe. We have just a grid pattern. That's definitely not, I mean, it's neutral. Then some rustic dots. I guess I say rustic, or there's something, the weathered, where they come in almost like they kind of make them, rough a little bit. So it has a little bit more than just dots. It's, there's a little bit of texture to it. And then of course the mats and the borders. And I always look to see what's on the other side of this. And it's a stripe. The reason I say that is because I'm always partial to, like, can you put a paper I don't really like on the other side? Because then I don't feel guilty or terrible when I start cutting it up. And I like that. So definitely gonna have to think hard about how I put things together, because those pumpkins are super cute. And I like all the little mats. Then this particular page is almost like one of those little Fast to Fabulous pages. You could come, it has the Haunted Halloween, or the house on it. And I think, I don't have it with me, but I'm really wondering whether or not if you punch the fairgrounds, punch and cut out the Ferris wheel, that maybe you could have, do it in black, you could have kind of maybe a little bit of a haunted house effect. And then we have some pumpkins on the final set, some pumpkins in all of the colors that are in the paper pack. Then of course is the ghost. It's super, super cute, guys. Super cute. And it does go in the round. I mentioned, I think I posted about it. It's kind of hilarious when you punch it in the round. The pieces that it always creates those wedges that we've had to cut them out. So it's pumpkin with a side of stabby. You could leave those wedges in if you want. You can cut them out. I just thought it was kind of funny. But the stickers are really, really cute. They've got more of the ghosts. And then there is a sheet of the borders. So really cute. I love seeing the cobwebs in there. I'm really kind of hopeful that maybe someday we'll get a cobweb border maker cartridge, but we'll see. There's other ones I would love to see first. So it's not super high on my list. I know it's a very specific market, but I have a lot of Halloweens to do. And I have such a young, my little guy is just 6. He'll be 7 this November. And we're still in that kid Halloween. We dress up, we still have lots of fun trick-or-treating. So I've got a few more years ahead of me of kind of those fun Halloween layouts. So I still get super excited when we have really nice Halloween themed stuff here. So super, super excited about that. So that's the full moon. So there was a couple other things that came out that I did not order yet. So there was the Powerful in Pink theme kit, and I did order it, but I didn't get it in this one order that I 2-day aired to myself. So I'll show you that later. And there was a couple, the 8x8s are out. I'm gonna switch back over here to my face. Okay, so yeah, the 8x8s came out. There's some really nice colors in there, and there's the standard stuff. I have a couple of 8x8s that I've made base pages for, but I haven't put photos in. It's a size for me that I don't personally use a lot. So it's not something I've really focused a whole lot on, but we might take some, look at some options for that. And there was a new the new recipe template for the ribbon awareness one. That would be really nice. Pretty versatile for various ribbon type things that you might want to do. I know there's lots of various types of ribbon awareness things. I don't know how the charities, I guess, that use them. So right now we have, the pink for breast cancer awareness, but there's lots of other ones. So if you like the recipe templates and you have, a special cause or something that you do events for, you might find that to be a really good recipe template to try out. And I think that's kind of it in terms of some new products. I need to confirm with Creative Memories when our October launch is going to be. We're kind of at a weird pacing right now. I think we may actually have 3, so not this week or even the week following. It may not be till October. I think it's October 4th, but I'm going to double check. And of course I will, I like to just have it on my radar because I just kind of know. Our next, I know the reason I care about this is I might move the first Friday or the first Thursday event. I really like having the new products to show you guys. And so if we're not getting new product until the 4th, I'm going to move the crop to the 8th. No. Guys, the calendar, my head is, I'm thinking we're good. No, it's the 7th. Yeah. So I think it'll be the 7th. I'll figure it out. I will figure out. I'm going to wait to post the dates for the October crops until I know for sure from Creative Memories when we're going to see these new products. In terms of, there's some things coming up that I am doing as part of events. I've got the Croptoberfest stuff that I'm doing with Tessa. Our first class is next week. It is the borders class. We will be making some borders. I do have a couple of borders. I worked on a bunch of variety of things. And so I picked out the 3 ones that I think will be great to teach as part of this class. But there's a couple ones that are definitely not specific to Croptoberfest. That are just using tools I know many of you probably have, that I will still be probably doing in the All Access group. I'll say, hey guys, let's try this one because it's, just kind of a fun one to do. So there will be some Croptoberfest stuff that spills over into All Access. And actually, I know one of our October events is our Croptoberfest crop. So that's in the calendar. I think, I don't know if I have it scheduled yet. I got to look. I'm sorry. I feel a little bit like, I know I've done some stuff, but maybe I haven't posted the events yet. So I have borders next week. The other thing that's also next week is the Creative Life Scrapbooking PJ Party. So that's next Friday. And I know I've had several of you come to that, and I really enjoy seeing you. There's going to be 7 great layouts. I've seen sneak peeks of them and they're super, super cute. And then after that is the card class. And then going into October, Tessa and I are doing the page makers class with the fall y'all. So that's super cute. But there will definitely be fall All Access projects coming as well. Another power hour coming up in October. It's definitely a very busy time for the next few weeks. But it's scrapbooking season, right? We're getting back into, well, at least here in Washington State, the temperature is falling. The rains are going to start soon. And I'm going to basically not see the sun for another 6 months. So I consider that scrapbooking season. Are there any questions that I can answer for anything about any of the projects or any of the events coming up? Okay, here you guys. I'm sorry. I had the calendar was covering the chat. Okay, so the borders and more. Yes, you will. There will be other, you could use other paper packs with it. I definitely, when I make projects, I prefer to always keep versatility in mind unless there's something super, super specific. But for the most part, the border class, you could just use any kind of paper pack. We have not had a lot of, I think the shipping delays are wreaking a little bit of havoc on our tool selection. There hasn't been, I mean, nice to see the ghosts coming up. But I know there was I think it's called Sunflower Vine Punch that was supposed to come out and it got held up in shipping delays. We don't know. Creative Memories doesn't know when it's coming in. So in this particular borders class, there's going to be a lot of, here's what we're using. Here's what you could use. Make it your own. We always know that everybody has a different set of tools to choose from. So the same thing applies to paper. we have seen for our NSD borders, we saw people making them out of all sorts of different paper sets. So yes, I would say in that regards, you can just pick whatever paper pack you want to do it with. And yeah, I think it should work fine. Versatile there. So there is, Deborah, in between the Borders and More and the card class is the CLS, the Creative Life Scrapbooking PJ Party. That is a week from Friday on the 24th. So we'll have the Zoom crop that evening where we make, we have 6 hours. We make 6 2-page layouts over the course of that 6 hours. And so that's a great event. I will tell you guys, if you can't attend that one live, you can definitely, we put the recordings up. The recordings are up that evening. So you're like, I can't come Friday night because I got a football game to go to. Maybe on Saturday or Sunday when you're, I don't know if the weather's bad or you're stuck inside watching football, you could, still pull that content and watch the videos, make the layouts, tons of examples shown afterwards. Of different things. And once again, these are layouts that are meant to be very versatile. So you're going to see, I think there'll be like 30 people who will make my version, and there'll be another 30 to 40 who'll make Karen McDermott Rolfe's version of her layout. And so it's really exciting to see the different takes on it. So, all right. Any other questions? All right. Well, if there is nothing else, or if you think about something later, send me an email, message me on Facebook, and I'll do my best to answer. And yes, everybody have a great evening. And I will plan to see you all in a couple of weeks. We'll figure it out. I'll get those dates on the calendar. Maybe they're already there. I can't remember. So, all right, everybody have a nice evening, and I will see you soon.